When America created the world's first nuclear bomb, it thought it was now the undisputed king of the world, untouchable. But it was wrong. That single explosion triggered a dangerous race, and today there are 10 countries in the world that possess the codes to build nuclear bombs. Some countries helped each other, and some stole the technology, but every single one of them relied on spies, deception, and secret deals. We will see today how these 10 nations competed against each other to create the world's most dangerous technology, and we will also see those countries that got very close to acquiring this technology, and those whose name is next on the list to build a nuclear weapon. This story actually begins in Germany in 1938. This was when scientists first discovered nuclear fission, and they realized that by splitting atoms, they could release massive energy through a chain reaction. This discovery shook the entire scientific community. The very next year, Albert Einstein sent a warning to America, telling the American government that the Nazis could weaponize this new science. Because of this warning, history's most expensive and secretive science experiment was launched. America started the Manhattan Project. This was a massive operation involving scientists from America, the UK, and Canada, and they spent nearly 1% of their entire GDP on this one goal. They knew that in competition with them were the Germans, who were already working on this program, but the Germans were finding very little success. Germany surrendered in May 1945, and by then it had not prepared a nuclear bomb. But then in July 1945, the world changed forever. American President Harry Truman, Joseph Stalin, and Winston Churchill were discussing the design of the post-World War II world at the Potsdam Conference. During that very meeting, Harry Truman received a secret message that the Trinity test in New Mexico had been successful. America was now a nuclear power. President Truman told Stalin that America now had the nuclear bomb. He was expecting Stalin to be surprised, but Stalin simply nodded his head and said he hoped America would use it well against Japan. Truman did not know that Stalin already knew about this, as Soviet Union spies had penetrated deep inside the Manhattan Project. Internally, Stalin was furious that America had built the bomb before them. In August, America dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan and ended the Second World War. But as soon as the smoke from those explosions cleared, a new race had begun. The Soviet Union became the second country to join the nuclear club. They had started their research in 1941 and had become alert when they noticed American and British scientists suddenly stopped publishing papers on nuclear physics. They realized the work had now gone underground. After seeing the destruction in Japan, the Soviet program picked up full speed. They had stolen a massive amount of data from the Americans, but there was a problem. They were very paranoid. They feared American double agents would be feeding them wrong data to cause them harm. So because of this, they did not fully trust the stolen designs. They captured German scientists and verified all this research with them. They moved forward with much more speed than the West was expecting. In 1949, the Soviets detonated RDS-1 in Kazakhstan and ended the American monopoly. The arms race of the Cold War had now officially begun. You might be assuming the third country would perhaps be the United Kingdom. After all, the British were friends of the Americans, and they had already done a lot of groundwork in a project named tube alloys. But according to the Quebec Agreement, they had to give all this research to America. It was written in this agreement that both countries would share technology with each other, but in 1946, America blew that agreement into the air. It passed a law that cut off the exchange of nuclear information as they wanted to keep nuclear secrets only to themselves. Britain remained shocked. They realized that to remain a world power, they would have to do something themselves. They still had the world's largest uranium supply and the knowledge as well. They worked very fast. In 1952, the UK detonated its first bomb off the coast of Australia, which was named Operation Hurricane, and in this way, Britain also became a nuclear country. But now, the game was changing. The bombs that were dropped on Japan were fission bombs. Now, in 1950, scientists were working on something far more dangerous. They were building thermonuclear weapons, also known as hydrogen bombs. Instead of breaking atoms, these bombs were made by fusing them together. These bombs were hundreds of times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Scientists like Oppenheimer requested the government not not to make them, warning that this would lead humanity toward destruction, but President Truman ignored them. In 1952, America tested Ivy Mike. This was the first hydrogen bomb. The Soviets tested a hydrogen bomb in 1955 and the British in 1957. The destruction potential of humans had now increased 1,000 times. The fourth country to build the nuclear bomb was France. France was very embarrassed during the Suez Crisis and felt that the superpowers were suppressing it. It decided it needed its own defense so that it could be respected as a European superpower. America was strictly against France having nukes and tried hard to discourage them, but President Charles de Gaulle stood firm. He said that nuclear weapons were essential for French sovereignty. France began sourcing uranium from its colonies in Africa, such as Madagascar and Gabon. France was still recovering from the destruction of World War II, but its scientists worked very hard. In 1960, France went to the Sahara Desert in Algeria and detonated its first nuclear bomb, codenamed Gerboise Blue. This explosion sent a message to Washington and the entire world. France no longer needed the American military for protection. The fifth country was China. The Chinese wanted a defense against Americans. Initially, the Soviet Union helped them because they considered China a fellow communist country, but then relations soured. In fact, Soviet leader Khrushchev began criticizing Stalin's legacy and wanted better relations with the West. Mao Zedong found this very wrong. He accused the Soviets of losing their revolutionary spirit. Both countries split, and the Soviet Union withdrew all its technical help, leaving China to figure out the rest on its own. At that time, a massive cultural revolution was happening in China, but they put all their resources into building the nuclear bomb. In 1964, China shocked the world by testing its first atomic bomb at Lop Nur. After this, they gave another shock. Just 2.5 years later, they also tested a hydrogen bomb. This was the fastest development from a basic fission bomb to an advanced fusion bomb by any country. The sixth country on this list is the most mysterious, and that is Israel. To this day, Israel has never officially admitted that it has nuclear weapons. It maintains silence on this matter. In the 1950s, Israel began building a secret nuclear facility in the Negev desert with the help of France. American spy planes spotted this construction site. President John F. Kennedy became very worried and demanded an inspection of this plant. The Israelis stalled and told them nothing. They built fake walls and hidden elevators to hide the underground bomb-making facilities. John F. Kennedy died before he could stop Israel, and Lyndon B. Johnson, who came after him, was quite pro-Israel. It is believed that by 1967, Israel possessed the nuclear bomb. The world got confirmation of this many years later in 1986. A technician named Mordecai Vanunu had worked in the secret Israeli facility. He took photos there and smuggled them out of the country. He gave this story to a British newspaper, but before the story could be published, the Israeli Secret Service Mossad reached him. They set a trap. A female agent pretended to be an American tourist in London. She flirted with Vanunu and convinced him to go to Rome with her for a romantic weekend. As soon as he reached Rome, he was drugged, kidnapped, and shipped back to Israel. He spent 18 years in jail there. Because of his sacrifice, the world came to know that Israel was indeed a nuclear power. The seventh country was India. India was surrounded and felt trapped between two powerful enemies. It had lost a war to China in 1962 and was constantly fighting with its rival Pakistan on the other border. India started a research program in an energy reactor brought from Canada. India claimed they were not building a bomb, but in 1974, they conducted a test in the desert. They called it a peaceful nuclear explosion, and its code name was Smiling Buddha. A commotion broke out in the world. Canada and America imposed sanctions on India for misusing technology. India stopped for a while, but in 1998, it officially weaponized its program. They declared a no first use policy, which means they promise they will not use nukes unless someone else uses a nuclear bomb on India first. The eighth country has perhaps the most unique story. This was South Africa. By the 1970s, the South African government had become completely alone. The rest of the world hated their racism and refused to help. They looked toward their borders and saw enemies everywhere. Neighboring countries like Angola were falling under communist control. They decided they needed an ultimate insurance policy. They had massive uranium reserves and began using them. In 1979, an American satellite detected a mysterious light in the Indian Ocean near the South African-controlled islands. It is believed this was a joint nuclear test with Israel. By 1980, South Africa had built 6 fully functional nuclear bombs. But then, the world changed. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the threat of communism ended. The South African government knew that their time was up. They were terrified of handing over nuclear weapons to the incoming government led by Nelson Mandela. So they did something that no other country could do. They voluntarily dismantled all their nuclear weapons. They destroyed all the blueprints and melted the uranium. South Africa is the only country that made its own nukes and then ended everything itself. The 9th country is Pakistan. After losing half the country to India in 1971, Pakistani Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto announced that even if the people had to eat grass, they would make their own nuclear bomb. They could not let India dominate them. The hero of this program was Abdul Qadir Khan. He was a metallurgist in a facility in the Netherlands that enriched uranium. He used his clearance to steal top-secret blueprints of centrifuges. He memorized all these designs, copied them, and brought them back to Pakistan. These designs gave them a tremendous head start. They also received help from China, which wanted to keep India in check. America knew what Pakistan was doing, but America needed Pakistan's help to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, so the Americans closed their eyes. In 1998, just weeks after India conducted its tests, Pakistan also responded. They detonated 5 nuclear bombs in the mountains. Everyone in Pakistan was happy. They had leveled the playing field. Unlike India, Pakistan does not have a first-use policy. This means if they feel they are losing a conventional war, they will launch a nuclear missile. And now we come to the final country on this list, and that is North Korea. North Korea wanted nukes for the same reason everyone else did. They wanted regime survival. The Kim family felt that without nuclear bombs, America would attack them. Initially, they took Soviet help for energy, but then went into complete secrecy. They signed a treaty promising not to make weapons, and then broke those treaties. They used the designs that are said to have been bought from Pakistan. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first underground nuclear test. It was a small explosion, and according to some experts, it was a partial failure, but they kept trying. In 2009 and 2013, they tested bigger bombs. By 2017, they tested a thermonuclear hydrogen bomb. And today, they have intercontinental missiles that can theoretically reach America. North Korea is the only country that withdrew from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and made a nuclear bomb. So, these are the 10 countries that made the bomb, but the story is not limited to them. There are other countries that have nuclear weapons. During the Cold War, America and the Soviets hid their nuclear weapons all over the world. American nukes are still placed in Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey today. Russia has recently moved tactical nuclear weapons back into Belarus. We also have to look at those countries that tried and failed. You would be surprised to know how many countries were close to making a nuclear bomb. Argentina and Brazil had military programs that they have now abandoned. Sweden and Switzerland also considered this. But the most volatile region has always been the Middle East. Iraq had its own nuclear program during the era of Saddam Hussein. In 1981, Israel launched Operation Opera and destroyed the Iraqi reactor by conducting airstrikes. In 2007, Israel did this again. They dropped bombs on a secret facility in Syria that was being built with the help of North Korea. For Israel, the issue now is Iran. Iran has been enriching uranium for years. Israel and the West have targeted Iran's nuclear program to push it back. One more country that is often overlooked is Japan, which experts call a threshold state. Japan has advanced rocket technology and large reserves of plutonium. Experts believe that if Japan wants, it can make nuclear weapons in months. Currently, their pacifist constitution prevents this, but if the geopolitical situation in Asia changes, Japan can break the treaty at any time. And in the end, we cannot forget what is at the bottom of the oceans. Treaties and inspections focus on the land, but the real strength of nuclear countries is in the depths of the sea. America, Russia, the UK, China, France, and India all operate nuclear-armed submarines. These submarines can stay underwater for months, and tracking them is impossible. They ensure that even if a country is wiped off the map, their submarines can launch retaliatory strikes from anywhere in the world. This is the concept of mutually assured destruction. It is the same dangerous logic that has maintained peace for 80 years. This technology, which started in a laboratory in Germany, has now spread to every corner of the map. We have seen the nuclear club grow from just 1 member to 10. This technology is old, but its blueprints are everywhere. The only thing stopping the next country is politics, not science.